Road, Michael Isikoff, the chief investigative correspondent for Yahoo News, and CNN political commentator David Swerdlick. Gentlemen, good evening. David Road, I'm going to start with you. Evan Perez reporting tonight that tension is building inside the Justice Department, with a lot of people feeling like it wasn't necessary for Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to bring in Special Counsel Mueller, at least not yet. There's also a question of whether he'll have to recuse himself on this. What is your take on this?
I think it's a sign of that, Trump's effort to pressure Rosenstein is working. If Rosenstein recuses himself or resigns, then it goes to the number 3 official in the department, Kelly Brand, I believe is her name, and there's a view that she's maybe more malleable, that she'll maybe try to shrink the scope of the Russia investigation.
How much further can we go down the chain at the Justice Department?
There aren't a whole lot of people left.
That's a serious question.
Right, yeah. I mean, look, of the Trump nominated, confirmed people at the Justice Department, it's Jeff Sessions who's recused, it's Rod Rosenstein, it's Rachel Brand, and then I think the Solicitor General. That's it. But look, the Rosenstein recusal, I'm not sure why that would make any difference at all. Mueller is the guy in charge of this investigation. It is true that Mueller ultimately reports to Rosenstein, but the whole point of the special counsel regulation is that he is supposed to be independent and operate on its own, and that's historically the way it's been.
What if he fires him? Then there's no one.
Well, if Trump fires Mueller, yeah, but then he'll have to face the political consequences of that, which will be enormous. But the idea that getting rid of Rosenstein is going to affect Mueller is hard to it's hard to follow the logic of that.
Okay, so David, did you want to weigh in on that?
No, I think Michael is right. Look, all of these officials risk getting embroiled in this in the same way that Director Comey did, in the way that Deputy Acting Attorney General Sally Yates did, unless they get fired, which seems to me like, in a sense, if you're Rod Rosenstein, would almost be like merciful at this point, because if he's not fired, he either has to recuse himself or partially recuse himself, or maybe explain why he isn't recusing himself, or be a recused Deputy AG like Attorney General Sessions is right now, sort of half on the sidelines and half not, or basically do the bidding of the president as far as this goes. Rosenstein, I think if you go back to his May 9th memo, where he outlined reasons why Director Comey was ineffective for the FBI, he still is operating under this cloud, not because of anything about his own integrity, but because he prepared a document for the president, which was then used as a pretext to get rid of Comey, only to have that pretext overturned by the president himself. It's a mess. It's a mess, Don.
Okay, I need a graph, and I need you to draw lines. I mean, seriously, David wrote, every day I look at this, I get the updates, I read the papers, and I'm like, is this actually happening? And if you're someone at home and you're just sort of following along, not as closely as we do here in the news, I'm sure it's very confusing. And in some ways, people just may tune out because they're like, I have no idea. There's so much happening here.
And that's where this messaging that this is a witch hunt, that there's nothing there. And I think if you do push Rosenstein behind, and if the number 3 official were to fire Mueller, it's the narrative is that Mueller's biased. He wanted to be the FBI director, didn't get the job, and then he becomes a special counsel. And then Rosenstein is conflicted. The narrative, I would think, at least to his base, is getting through, that there's no merit to this investigation.
But won't people understand that just because he didn't get the job, and I don't know if he's upset or not, but he doesn't appoint himself as a special counsel, someone who is under Donald Trump, the president actually appointed him. So that makes
But it's all the deep state.
Yeah,
it's all the deep state, and that could work for him.
Can I ask you guys, this is about John Dowd, the president adding John Dowd to his legal team, a well-known D.C.-based attorney.
Yeah, I do, and he's well respected.
What does that
he's
tell
been
you?
around for a while. He needs the help. I mean, look, Mark Kasowitz, his main lawyer, is not an experienced Washington criminal defense lawyer. He's a New York civil litigator who's had very little, if any, experience in this kind of arena, dealing with the politics of congressional investigations and the intricacies of a major Justice Department criminal investigation.
It's worth
remembering that, the president couldn't get his, he approached 4 top criminal defense lawyers in Washington and was all turned down because they didn't want to work for him.
Yeah.
So
they felt that they or their firms may be tarnished by
that was one of the factors, and also the question of whether he would listen to their advice.
David Swerd, look, let's talk about this. Let's dig in a little bit more with what David Rode was talking about, the messaging of the president, because he went on and had another round of tweets from that potentially don't help his case today. And here's the latest one. He says, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. Witch hunt. I mean, does this help or hurt? I mean, legally, it doesn't help him.
No, legally it doesn't help. I think David Rode is right that this does help the president send a message over the heads of us in the media to his base that he's fighting, that what the narrative that's coming out of mainstream media is sort of fake news or whatever, witch hunt, whatever tagline
but he's
he wants to put on it.
confirming that he's under investigation.
Right. He's confirmed. Well, that's the other part of this. He's confirming that he's under investigation, or at least from his perspective, he's under investigation. I decided today that I'm not going to go too far into trying to psychoanalyze what the president is really trying to communicate with each tweet and just take it at face value. But the problem for the president with the tweets is that even though he's communicating to his base, he's also digging a deeper hole whereby the entire legal establishment has to dig in further and further on all of these issues, and he's only reaching his base. And Don, the other thing is he's undercutting the message that he put out in the campaign that he would hire the best people. He hired Rod Rosenstein. He was the best business manager. He was the best CEO. But he's managing sort of semi-chaos right now. That message is being undercut.
He's also contradicting himself. Remember, he told Lester Holt that he fired Comey because of the Russia investigation.
And that he was going to fire him regardless of what Rosenstein
said. That's right. And he told the Russian foreign minister the same thing. So he's going back to the original story that the White House put out, which they then contradicted or took back a day or two later after Trump gave the interview. So it's bizarre that the president, by tweeting, is contradicting his own words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a pattern where he's creating legal problems for himself. He was, he tweeted that this was a Muslim ban. That undermines, his defense of his.
David, can I ask you though? After a while, and after I speak to Trump supporters, they will come up and talk to me, and there's some, who will say, nothing has happened. We're not getting the tax cuts. I have a business. I'm becoming worried about that. Everything is defensive. Everyone is out to get him. They don't think that everyone is out to get him. Most rational people don't think that everyone is out to get the president. And if they supported him, they're wondering where are the things that I want. He's looking out for himself and not necessarily looking out for me. How long before they say, all right, I'm done?
Well, you can see the numbers are sort of his core supporters and the enthusiasm in their support is sort of dropping, and he barely won this election. It was by a very, very narrow margin. So if there's just a higher Democratic turnout in the midterms, that could really harm him. But I guess I just don't want us to underestimate the potential effectiveness of this messaging. It's bad for our institutions. It's making everyone cynical about law enforcement, all these really important, crucial things to our country, but people might believe it.
Well, we're going to talk more about this. That's got to be the last word, because up next, what do